All right, good Tuesday morning, everybody. The Iceman here on the Iceman's Wrestling Network, the Iceman V2013, aka Jeffrey Rose YouTube channel. Um, you know, uh, we can talk about Raw or whatnot. The King in the Ring, I think, is a pretty good idea. Um, I'm not sure exactly, uh, what the whole idea of this is to be. Um, a lot of people are picking Bad News Barrett to be the King in the Ring, and I'm just wondering if they're going to have Neville to propel him into great heights because I do think they have big things for Adrian Neville. But anyway, this video is about the late great Verne Gagne, Laverne Clarence Gagne. This guy was he was just the absolute excellence in the world of professional wrestling. He basically joined the National Wrestling Alliance. I believe it was in 1949. And to just talk about all that he accomplished, we could be here for hours. Um, he held major titles back then, all sorts of titles back then. And then in 1960, he was pretty much up there. Pretty much his career was still moving on, but he decided to go off in his home state of Minnesota and decide to create his own wrestling promotion, which he did. The AWA, the American Wrestling Association or Alliance, whatever you want to call it. And one thing about Verne Gagne, when he was a champion, he was always a baby face. We really never saw a heel Verne Gagne. But anyway, the AWA was created, and people don't realize this because a lot of people didn't know too much about the AWA because it really wasn't televised until like '85 on ESPN. So you're talking a good 25 years that you really, unless you were living in the Minnesota area and whatnot, you probably never got to see it. Which I know I didn't until '85. I mean, I knew all about the AWA because I used to buy Pro Wrestling Illustrated or Wrestling Illustrated. I used to read the articles. This is how I knew about all these guys back then. And Verne Gagne had there was a lot of good you know matches and feuds. Killer Kowalski, um, Billy Robinson was another one. I know a lot of people probably don't even remember these names. And it went on, and he created a really good promotion with a lot of talent. This promotion was basically a stepping stone later on to when the territories were dissolved by WCW, Ted Turner, and Vince McMahon. And there was, like I said, there was a lot of talent there. We had Jerry Lawler there. We had Nick Bockwinkel, Ray the Crippler Stevens, Larry Kaninsky. Um, the list goes on. Kurt Hennig was there. Larry the Axe Hennig was in AWA. Greg the Hammer Valentine, Eddie Gilbert, Rick Martel, the Rockers. Well, I should say originally, Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels were in the AWA as well. And yeah, so they created a great promotion. The promotion was great. And like I said, it wasn't until '85 and ESPN started airing AWA that we really got to see it. And I didn't get cable. I believe it was till 1979 my family got cable, and then I was able to start watching AWA. But I used to buy the magazines anyway because living here in the Northeast, it was all the old WWF or the WWF times. And Verne Gagne just he just had a great promotion. And in 1981, he got Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan then was with I believe it was Johnny Valiant, Luscious Johnny Valiant. That was his manager, and he was feuding a lot with Nick Bockwinkel, who was managed by Bobby Heenan. They called it the Heenan family, and Hulk Hogan became so popular in the AWA that they really had no choice. You know, Hulk Hogan had to become he had to be a face, and there was issues back then with Hulk Hogan too about merchandising. There was merchandising back then, and Hulk Hogan wanted more of you know the residual. You know what I'm talking about? The I can't think of the word, but anyway, he wanted to get more of the money that he was getting that they were making, on this, the royalties. And but anyhow, Verne Gagne and Hulk Hogan were big, and prior to Hogan being in the AWA, he was in the WWF, and he left. I mean, Vince McMahon Sr. had him there, and then he urged Hogan to do the Rocky III movie, and after that, pretty much, the WWF just let him go because I guess he just wasn't appealing enough. But the minute he became very popular in the AWA, Vince McMahon Jr., who took over, I believe it was in '82, the WWF stole Hogan away from Verne Gagne's promotion, and with his popularity already there, he utilized it, and we all know the story after that. Hulk Hogan ended up defeating the Iron Sheik in 1983, who had beat Bob Backlund because the WWF wanted Backlund to turn heel and he didn't want to do it. And so they pulled a fast one, had Arnold Skolin throw in the towel. Iron Sheik becomes champion. A month later, Hogan takes over, and the rest is history. But anyhow, Verne Gagne was a legend in the world of professional wrestling. And one good thing about the AWA, it was no nonsense wrestling. This was a promotion that was all about wrestling. You had great technical wrestlers there. We had Larry Zbyszko there as well. There's just a lot of talent that came up into the AWA. And then, like I said, once territories were bought out between WWF and Turner and NWA, WCW, that's where all the talent went. And it left them to the point where around 1991, they're being aired on ESPN. ESPN were preempting their shows for like sports news or other things that ESPN thought was more important, and it sort of destroyed AWA, and they finally went out of business, and that's the story. But Verne Gagne, 89 years old. Um, I will say this about him: uh, a great man, had great feuds. There was the feud with Fritz von Erich, the late Fritz von Erich. I mean, it was just everything was just awesome. If you wanted to watch real good actual wrestling, you went to the AWA way back then, and it was sort of like the NWA in their early days too. I mean, when the Crockett's owned them, I thought it was awesome. But so anyhow, it is a sad day, and it's sometimes when you hear about these things, it just makes you think back to those days when you used to watch the promotion and whatnot. I remember rummaging through all these wrestling magazines. Loved to read about these guys that I never heard of before because I never got to. I never saw them on TV. But this is how I learned. And those magazines, and Bill Apter was one of the writers for the magazines. He was at a lot of shows. As a matter of fact, I saw the video by Bill Apter. You should check it out. He called Verne's son Greg to confirm last night of Verne's passing, and they talked. And of course, Bill Apter knows pretty much everybody in the world of professional wrestling, especially you know in the older days. But anyhow, so anyway, it's a sad day in the world of professional wrestling. You know, Verne Gagne, born in 1926, and passes away on April 27th, 2015. This is the Iceman. Have yourself a great day, everybody.